Hi, and welcome to Reading Greek Tragedy Online. I'm Joel Christensen. I'm here with the Center for Hellenic Studies, Out of Chaos Theater, and another great cast today to bring you Sophocles Electra. We have Evvy Miller, Tabatha Gayle, Sara Valentine, Tim Delap, Eunice Roberts, and René Thornton Jr. again. Special guest Amy R. Cohen, who's going to teach us a lot about this play. And this is all crafted for you by Paula Mahoney and Liz Fisher, as well as our great cast and crew we'll talk about at the end of the show. So this week we turn to the first of many plays set around the house of Atreus, Sophocles' Electra. The story follows Orestes' return home to murder his mother and her lover Aegisthus for the killing of his father Agamemnon. For fans of tragedy, the tale is famous from our only full trilogy from ancient Athens, Aeschylus' Oresteia. But it was legendary and perhaps even paradigmatic earlier. Homer's Odyssey features it, where Orestes is held up repeatedly as a model of youthful initiative to Telemachus, and Clytemnestra's betrayal of her husband appears as a constant threat to Odysseus' homecoming. The story of Orestes is, like the end of the Odyssey, about the cycle of vengeance and the dangerous narrative pull of the call to revenge. In Aeschylus' Eumenides, Orestes ends up in Athens, where he is judged by a jury for his mother's murder. His story pits the orders of one god, Apollo, against the claims of the others, the Furies, and the loyalty of a son to mother or father. The story of the Elektra is a prolonged rumination on the choices made before that crisis. This version of the tale is often dated to the end of Sophocles' life during the middle of the Peloponnesian War. It features Orestes returning with Pylades in disguise to announce his own death. The title character Elektra has been mourning her father's murder and longing for her brother's return. Once she finds out about Orestes' true identity, the play turns to murder. But prior to that ever-delayed moment of recognition, the audiences witness Orestes' hesitation and Elektra's sorrow. So, Amy, I'm glad you're here to help talk about this play because I always get the details confused from one version to another. But first, I'm wondering, what is it about Orestes' story that made the Athenians keep going back to it?
I think it's probably more like what the whole family's story, how the whole family story holds interest. I think tragedy, I keep finding that tragedy, it explores situations where there are no good answers, where people are in situations where it isn't clear who's right and who's wrong, or what the correct decision is, or the correct course of action. And this family keeps having moments when they have to make decisions in which there are no good answers. So I think that Aeschylus answers those things one way and puts the whole situation on trial and solves the endless vengeance with new Athenian legal paradigms and a sort of a shift in culture. And Sophocles and then Euripides also put these questions in different lights, and in family dynamics, or in I'm trying to think about Euripides' play, which we're not really doing today, where he adds a different take on family dynamics, I would say. So I think that's part of it, that this family offers in particular a whole series of difficult decisions in which there isn't really a good answer, and lots of people behave badly, but you can kind of understand why. I think the other reason, sorry, do you have a question on that?
No.
Okay. The other thing because we have 3 Elektra plays, so as I just mentioned, Euripides has a version which you referred to, and of course the Libation Bearers with Aeschylus. I think with those 2 playwrights, Sophocles and Euripides, it's a chance for them to flex their theatrical muscles, because both of those plays clearly engage with Aeschylus's play. And so I think by doing that, partly they're saying, hey, I want you to think back to this other play, and I'm looking at these questions in a different way. I think both playwrights want that other play to be in mind, but it also gives each of the later playwrights the chance to try different things with their theatrical skills.
So if we're not focusing then on the myth, but instead in thinking of the theater,
Yes.
And thinking about Sophocles flexing. What
Yes.
is it about this play that's important or that is indicative of Sophocles as an artist?
Well, the thing that I always see first is how he cast it. So, and we're not going to get to play with that much today because we're using modern Zoom conventions, let's call them. But Sophocles cast the same actor as both Orestes and Clytemnestra, which means that when he destroys his mother, he's destroying himself. And there are other things that go on with casting of, if you use only 3 actors, not including Pylades, who never says anything in this play, then you get some interesting dynamics going on where the whole family is destroyed by by the revenge that they take.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to have so much doubling, we should be probably in Thebes. Right? But so I want to ask about Pylades maybe at the break because his silence is interesting. And today what we're going to be doing for those who are watching is we're going to have 3 scenes close together without too much commentary, have a break in the middle, and then more discussion at the end. So Amy, thanks for setting that up. And we'll talk again soon. I hope you enjoy this performance. Maybe next time we can have the roles played the same.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. And we're starting out about 86 lines into the play. Before this starts, the play does not begin with the title character, but with the secret arrival in Mycenae of Orestes and Pylades, who are being led by a tutor, an older man who's been serving Orestes. The group announce their intentions to take back the house, and then they hear Elektra wailing from inside, and then they make themselves scarce. So that's the first scene that we'll have today.
O holy light, O air, earth's equal partner, how many cries of grief have you heard? How many times have you seen me draw blood as I beat at my breast when black night lifted? Oh, these all-night festivals of weeping, mourning for my poor father. He could have been an honoured guest in a foreign grave if the bloody war had taken him, but no. My mother and her playmate in bed, Aegisthus, like a pair of lumberjacks at an oak tree, took a bloody axe and split his skull. Now, oh, my father, no one weeps for me, no one weeps for you but me. And I am the only one who cries out against your murder, and I will never stop. Like the nightingale who sings for her murdered child, I will proclaim my raging grief to everyone in front of these, my father's gate. I call on hell, home of Hades and Persephone. I call Hermes out of the dark earth, and Ara, mistress of the curse. I call the God-begotten holy furies. Come, you gods, be my army. Punish those who killed my father and bring my brother to me.
Dear child, Elektra, daughter of disaster mother, will you wail and weep forever? What will be enough for you, to melt in tears? That's old news now, Agamemnon getting trapped, deceived by your mother, utterly godless, betrayed by her wicked hand. And the man behind it all, may I say it aloud, I wish he were dead.
Dear women, you are true to your noble birth. I am in anguish and you came to comfort me. Believe me, I understand what you say. You are not unheard. But I do not want to give this up. Ceaseless, raucous mourning for my poor father.
But you'll never raise him up. Hades sucks down everyone. Your father needs no tears or prayers from you. You'll cry yourself to death. Tell me, why are you so devoted to your pain?
Could anyone forget the horror of a parent's death? Or learn to be as silent as a baby? My mind is stamped in the image of a crying bird who calls for her dead child forever. Etis, Etis! And mindless with grief, she is Zeus's messenger.
But you are not alone, child. All mortals suffer pain. You let it hurt too much. The others in your house, same father, same blood as you, they live with the same loss as you. Why do you take it over the edge? And what about the boy who was hidden from pain? He is well born and happy, and someday Mycenae, our famous land, will have him back. Orestes will come.
He's the one I'm waiting for. I never give up, I hang on. Unmarried, childless, fluttering in misery, sodden with tears, while my string of bad luck runs on and on. But Orestes forgets his pain and what he knows of mine. Always, he says, I long to come. I long to come. All right, but then show yourself to me.
Be hopeful, child, be hopeful. Even now, in heaven, great Zeus sees all, rules all. Let him bear your grief. It is too much for you. Time is a soft and gentle god. And still the lord of the cow-grazed height of Chrysa, Apollo, turns this over and over in his mind. So does Agamemnon's son, and so does the godlike king himself by Acheron.
But what about me? What hope can I have? My life drains away, my strength is gone. I am no better than a foreign servant, a worthless woman brought to tend my father's room, dressed in these rags, laying food on a table that has no place for me.
Agony to hear, a scream at homecoming, agony in the lap of ancestors when he faced the bronze jaws. Startled by their assault, deception spoke then, lust had its way, and what they conceived was horrible, horribly given shape.
The day I hate beyond all others, the day of my worst enemies, the night, festival of anguish unspeakable, when my father saw his own death, his murder at their hands, when they caught up my life and threw it away, ruined.
Tell yourself, do not raise your voice again. Have you any idea where this leads? You are so far out of line, you'll fall blindly into ruin, your own blindness. You'll get more than your share of trouble if the sick spirit in your soul is pregnant with battle, if it always hatches war. Never launch a quarrel against the powers that be.
But I have to be dreadful in dreadful times. Necessity. I understand my passions. They are no mystery to me, but in dreadful times, how could I hold back? This blind fury seethes until I die. Please go away. Spare me your comfort. My pain is beyond cure, and I will never let it go.
That's some powerful language there from Paul Woodruff's translation, which we're using again this week with his permission. And especially the language with the young virgin sister pregnant with battle. After Elektra details her suffering further, the chorus expressed their sympathy to her and their fear of the now absent Aegisthus. And the next scene, we have Elektra and her sister, Chrysothemis, with the chorus as well.
What is this noise you're making just outside of our doorway? After so much time, are you still refusing to learn how silly it is to indulge in empty displays of emotion? I've decided that in a storm, it is best to slacken sail and not pretend to take action when you're causing them no pain. You should follow my example.
Dreadful. Absurd. Your father is the source of who you are. Yet you forget him and think only of the woman who gave birth to you. You learned everything from her. Explain to me, or else take my point. What would I gain by silencing my grief? I have my life, don't I? It's bad, but it's enough for me. And I give pain to them. So if there's any joy down there, the dead man has some satisfaction. Yes, you hate, but your hatred is only a word. Action killed father, and you're cozy with the killers.
Not so angry, by the gods! You'd both be better off if you learned something from each other.
As for me, ladies, I have become rather accustomed to the things that she says. I never would have brought it up, except that trouble is coming her way on a huge scale. So I heard. That will stop her endless wailing. Their plan is this. If you don't quit this lamentation, they will send you away to a place where never again will you see the light of the sun. You will be alive, under the roof of a dungeon, far from this land, and there you may sing of your troubles.
That is what they plan to do to me.
Absolutely. As soon as Aegisthus comes home.
Then I hope he makes it here quickly.
What are you aiming at? Have you lost your mind?
I aim to get as far as I can away from all of you.
Don't you care at all about the life that you have now?
Yes, it's a fine life I lead. Wonderful.
But it would be. If only you'd learn to think straight.
Don't you try to persuade me to turn against family.
I'm not trying to persuade you to do anything. Just give in to the powers that be.
I'll fall, if I have to, avenging father.
Father would understand this and forgive.
Congratulations on your wisdom. A coward would say the same.
I believe you. I was sent out for a purpose.
Where are you going? These offerings, who are they for?
Mother sent me to pour libations at Father's tomb.
What? Though he hates her more than anyone?
Though she killed him. That's what you meant to say.
Did she get this idea from some friend? Who was she trying to please?
She got it from fear because of her dream.
Oh, gods of our Father, be with us now above all.
Word is that she saw our father, yours and mine, and he was living with her again after he had returned into the light. And then in front of the hearth, he took and planted his scepter, the one he used to hold, which Aegisthus has now. And from it sprang a vigorous young branch that cast its shade over all the land of Mycenae. She sent me out on account of this fear.
No, darling. Those things that you are carrying, don't let any of them touch his tomb. It would be an outrage, an irreverence to bring that hateful woman's gifts as offerings for father's grave. She can have them when she dies. Her own little buried treasure, which we saved for her. Ask yourself, do you think the dead man would accept these gifts as tokens of friendship when he died at her hand, dishonored, like a worthless enemy? When she hacked off his legs, wiped the blood off her hands into his hair? Don't tell me you believe you could wash her crimes away. Not with the things you carry, no way. Get rid of them. Fall on your knees and make this prayer. May he rise from the earth to be our friend and ally. May he strike our enemies, and may his son Orestes have the upper hand. May our enemies learn that he is still alive when he has crushed them under his foot, so we may crown him with richer hands than those we have today. Listen, I believe he cares for us. I believe he sent her the nightmare for our sake, for you and me, my sister, as a helping hand.
Reverence agrees with the girl. If your mind is sound, you'll do what she said.
I'll do it. Justice forbids me debating on both sides, but please, for my sake, my friends, be quiet about it while I carry out this plan.
The chorus takes this opportunity to remind us of the many ills and ailments of the house of Atreus, which seems to know no end for its bloodletting, child killing, and parent killing. And goes through the trauma of the house in prior generations in between the scenes. In the following scene, we get Elektra with her mother Clytemnestra and the chorus again.
So, I suppose you think you're free to roam about now that Aegisthus is away. He'd keep you in bounds, indoors, so you wouldn't be such a disgusting embarrassment to your dear family. Well, he's gone, and you never listen to me. And yet you have lots and lots of things to say about me to the people. You call me cruel. You say I rule with no regard for justice, that I treat you arrogantly, outrageously. But the outrage isn't coming from me. I am only giving you back the insults you give me. Your father, that's your only charge against me, that his death came from me. I know that well enough. I can't deny it. And you should have helped too, if you'd had any sense. Because this father of yours, the one you're always weeping about, was the only Greek hard-hearted enough to sacrifice a girl to the gods, your sister. Can you convince me he had a reason to sacrifice her? For what? For the Greeks? They had no business killing a girl who belonged to me. Was it for his brother Menelaus that he killed her? Didn't Menelaus have 2 children? And didn't they have a better reason to die? After all, it was their father and mother who launched those ships. Do you think Hades had a greater appetite for my children than for hers? Or did your wretched father let his love for my children fade away while his love was still strong for those of Menelaus? She would agree with me. The dead girl would, if she had a voice.
This time you won't say it was I who began a round of insults. Still, if you permit, I'd like to set the record straight about my dead father and also about my sister.
By all means, plunge ahead.
All right, I will speak out. You admit you killed father. Could anything be more disgusting than that? No, even if you had justice on your side. You were controlled, brainwashed by that wicked man, the one you sleep with now. Would you demand an account from Artemis, the dog driver, why she locked up the winds at Aulis? I'll explain, since asking her is out of bounds. One day, I'm told, my father went for sport through woods belonging to the goddess. There, he startled a deer, a spotted buck with antlers. He killed it, and in doing that, he struck the goddess with an arrogant boast. This so enraged her that she held the Greek army back, so that my father would have to pay for his kill by sacrificing his own daughter. That's how it was, her sacrificial death. The army had no other way to move, no going home, no going on to Troy. Should he die for that? At your hand? By whose law? Because if we start taking a life for a life, each time you'll be the first to die, if justice comes your way. Take care. Your plea of justice will not stand. Please, if you like, convince me that you had cause to commit your own more recent foul, disgusting crimes. 1, you are sleeping with a man whose hands are stained with blood, your helper back then in killing father. 2, you are making babies while you turn the ones you had back then into outcasts, although they had grown up true to the family and from a true marriage. For these 2 crimes, how can I say a single word of praise? Are you telling me that you did them to avenge your daughter? Yet I am not allowed to say a single word against you without you shouting to the whole world that I have a filthy mouth. And what are you to me? More tyrant than mother, in my judgment. As for the one of us who got away, Orestes, he suffers still, though you can't reach him now. Because of him, you blare insults at me from the rooftops. Wicked slut, you say, or foul-mouthed, or no sense of shame at all. All right, if I was born like that, it came from you. So I have my mother's nature. I'm not ashamed of that.
I see she is huffing with anger. Is she giving any thought to whether justice is on her side? I don't see that yet.
What kind of thought should I have toward her? She treats her mother so outrageously, and at her age too.
Listen, of course I am ashamed of what I do, even if you can't tell. I learn from what I see. You absolutely force me to act the way I do, you know. Act ugly, ugly actions teach.
You nasty bitch! So I'm to blame, really?
The action was yours, and action is the cause of words.
My God, by Artemis, I swear you'll pay for this. Insolence. Just wait till Aegisthus is home.
Look at that. You just flew into a rage. You said I could say what I want, but you don't know how to listen.
Won't you let me make my sacrifice? A decent silence, please.
Make your sacrifice. My lips are sealed.
Hear my words, I pray, Apollo, guardian of our house, and understand their secret meaning. I am not among friends, and it would be a mistake for me to bring everything openly into the light while she is standing next to me. If I did, her tongue is so busy screaming in anger that she'd spread false, malicious words all over the city. So listen to me as I asked, since this is how I'll speak. The images I saw last night in that dream with two meanings, oh, wolf slayer, if what they promise is good, grant that they may come true. But if not, if what they promise is hostile, send them back against my enemies. Allow me to live my life as before, in total safety, looking after this house and the royal power of the sons of Atreus. Allow me to share day after day of happiness with my friends and my children, those who do not hate me or carry bitter pain. For these things, Apollo, wolf slayer, I pray. Hear me graciously and grant us all that we request.
So that scene, I think, did a couple of really neat things. It changed radically tonally from the scenes between the sisters. And I think the lightness of Woodruff's translation really made it easy to follow the sort of back and forth between the mother and daughter and their arguments. So Amy, it's almost bewildering watching the exchanges between these few characters. Can you talk a little bit about the contrast in mood and tone in the opening scenes in this play?
Sure. I think, well, one of the things I always get out of that scene, and I think we just saw it in this performance too, is you get the impression that those emotions have come up over and over again in the time between now and the death of Agamemnon so much earlier. And what we see then is the waiting that's happening. So in the scene that we didn't have at the beginning with Orestes and the tutor and Pylades sort of plotting what's going to happen, and Elektra waiting for things and hoping he's going to come back, and the relationship with the sisters about how Elektra continues to hold this grudge. And then we see that enacted, and we see the emotion of it come out, and they cannot stop being that way with each other. And we're going to see other moments like that where even within a scene, the emotions shift wildly from anger or joy to grief.
I really like the way that you emphasize that these are sort of like dramatized moments of arguments that go on and on and on, because it's such an important part of what happens on the stage here is we take this grand myth, right? And we make it really human. And I think in a way what's very different from the tellings of, say, Aeschylus and Sophocles. Like this Clytemnestra is someone I think I'm rooting for. Like I understand her, I hear her, right?
Her arguments are good. You know why she did what she did. I think we are just as upset by Agamemnon's actions. We perhaps would not murder for it, but the death of Iphigenia is still quite present for Clytemnestra, and Elektra doesn't seem to care that much about the death of her sister. She's just mad that her mom killed her dad, and
like
go ahead.
Her arguments is they feel like the types of arguments you rehearse from something you didn't actually experience yourself, right? Like it's someone summarizing what they learned in history class.
Right. And I get the impression, and maybe this is my own take on the play, but I get the impression that Clytemnestra and maybe Chrysothemis and maybe the chorus, everybody is really tired of hearing Elektra's complaints. It's been years. Can we stop with this now? You know, so I mean, there is some of that going on here, and certainly those family arguments that you know exactly once they start exactly where they're going to go.
Now, when watching this play, especially since we just did Antigone last week, I can't help but be struck by the similarity in the stances between Antigone and Ismene on the one hand and Elektra and Chrysothemis on the other. What's going on with these similarities, and what do you think attracts Sophocles to these types of relationships?
Well, it's really interesting. I was really noticing it as I was thinking about it for today too, that partly I was thinking about how Sophocles is exploiting his theatrical talents. He had a huge success with Antigone years before. And hey, that sister dynamic works really nicely there, where you've got Antigone wanting to take action, the more rash person not really caring about the community standards, and the sister who wants to wait and see, reminds her more rash sibling of community standards and what kind of trouble are we going to get in, and that relationship seems the same there. Chrysothemis isn't in either of the other two versions that we have. She's not in Libation Bearers or in Euripides' Elektra. So I think he sees that sibling relationship as fruitful to highlight his title characters' emotions and emphases, and as a foil. And then we get it in a different way with their other sibling, then with Orestes. Go ahead.
But what's neat, so to go back a little bit to mythography, Agamemnon's stable of daughters are sort of a shifting entity, right? They get a bunch of names, there are different numbers. And so it's really a place where a playwright can make his own mark, right? Can claim this space and give character or give voice to characters and characters to ideas that aren't there before. So in this play, so we have this repeated motif, these different voices about being loyal to the family or the state. And we're about to undergo a real shift in sort of action. So the beginning of the play is sort of two agones, right? And you have an agon between the sisters, one between the mother and the daughter. And then it's about to almost go kind of Euripidean with action coming up. What do you make of sort of the different parts of this play?
Well, partly I think Sophocles is having fun with it. Okay, so we're going to see what happens next is the secret plot going into action, because that's what Orestes and the tutor have planned. They have planned, let's come and let's pretend to be strangers, and let's tell them that Orestes is dead, and that's our way to get into the household, and then we can kill Clytemnestra and Aegisthus. And so that's what is about to happen. But at the same time, Orestes has come home, and he leaves some things at the tomb of his father, which Chrysothemis discovers. And so she thinks he's alive, as you're going to see. And we get this sort of joy of possibility, and then that's dashed again because Elektra has heard in this long speech how Orestes he's died in a chariot race. And then we'll get a little bit later, not to be too spoilery, but hey, we've had these plays for a really long time. We will get the moment when Elektra figures out that the person in front of her is her brother, and her joy at that nearly ruins the plot.
You know, now I'm going to have to start a subreddit about how Professor Cohen ruins all the plays for me.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, so, it is some interesting action. If it were Euripides, Orestes would end up murdering everybody in the end, but we don't quite get that here. Before we go back to the action, you have a friend in your frame.
I do.
Your shoulder. Do you want to tell me about who's there and a little bit about masks?
Sure. I think of this, I call this mask Allison because her face is my former student, Allison Michaels. We took a scan of her face and that made the mold of this. But she's been worn in several plays. And I wanted to talk about masks today if we had a chance, because when we did this play in 2008 with full masks, we had this wonderful moment in the scene that we are going to get to see, when Chrysothemis begins the scene joyous and ends the scene with her hopes dashed and in grief about her brother. People really thought that the mask changed expression. And so what I get to do a lot by getting to put on these plays in a large Greek theater outdoors with these masks is I get to see some of the dynamics that Sophocles could do with those things. And part of that is doubling, but part of that is also engaging the audience by needing them to be there for the task of bringing these masks alive. So the mask didn't actually move. I just had a great actor in Annie Freeman who expressed with the way she said the lines and with her whole body and her whole expression and how she made the mask move these things, but also our audience knowing what joy looks like when they hear it, and knowing what grief looks like when Annie was acting it, saw those expressions on the mask. And so we get to, at Randolph College, we get to see those things happening too. And a lot of what I do is think about how much these masks that don't actually move make us part of bringing the action to life, us, the audience.
And this, I mean, and it's especially fascinating now as many of us have different engagements with masks than we had, just 4 or 5 months ago. I don't know if you've tried to have a long conversation with one, right? But it's the reverse of the mask you're showing, because that has a mouth hole.
That's
right?
true.
Would not be very useful for social distancing. But again, it puts accents on different parts of the body and the way that you speak. Right.
It does. And actually, I even find that the video chat environment, I'm doing, because I don't have the rest of my communication available to me, I'm doing much more with my face to try to get things across. And I think people are doing that when we're in COVID masks for our safety. I think you see people compensating for that. And I wouldn't be surprised, in fact, I'm certain that the same sort of thing where we can trust the person we're talking to, just as the Sophocles actors could trust the audience, we can trust the people we're talking to fill in the blanks, to know from all the other cues and the context that we're smiling, that, the things that we can't show them when we can't make our COVID masks move, I think is probably related to what goes on with Greek masks.
In any good art form that's formalized introduces restrictions, right? And I think what we're seeing with Zoom, of course, is that it's selecting for different types of skills. Yesterday, and this is the last anecdote I'll say before we get to the play again, I was watching the news coverage of Kamala Harris being picked as VP. And one of the things they said, I think on MSNBC, was that she's good at Zoom. Right? I mean, I don't know exactly how that works, but it's, 2020 skills that are necessary.
Right.
Right. So we're going to go to the next set of scenes and to a very different kind of play in the second half. In the part that we took out, the tutor enters and he brings with him the burial urn of Orestes. So we have a token here of this dead young man, and gives a lengthy account of his supposed death in a chariot race. Clytemnestra's response is ambiguous and unclear, but she goes through the ritual motions of mourning her son and invites the tutor inside. And Elektra is, in contrast, grief-stricken. She rails against her mother, and the chorus tries to comfort her in exchange. And then we get, again, an exchange between the two sisters.
So excited by joy, dear sister, that I came back in a rush. It's no time for decorum. I bring news of joy.
You? Where would you find an antidote?
He's here with us, Orestes.
Have you lost your mind? You're in a sorry state. This is your disaster too. It's not a joke.
No, by father's hearthstone, it's no joke.
You are in a sad way. Who in the whole wide world could make you believe a tale like that so strongly?
Me! Myself! No one else! I saw the evidence! Clear enough to prove that the story is true. I'll tell you exactly everything that I saw. When I came to Father's tomb on the ancient mound, I saw fresh streams of milk springing from the top, and the flowers that are in bloom were twisted in a wreath to crown Father's grave. I crept up on the tomb, and at the edge I saw on the burial site a freshly cut lock of hair. And then immediately my poor soul was struck with a long familiar precious sight. The man I loved more than anyone, Orestes. This was evidence of him. I took it and felt it with my hands, not daring to say a word, but joy immediately filled my eyes with tears. And now I know for sure, as I did then, this lovely gift could have only come from him. Who else is supposed to do this? Only me and you. Me, I didn't do it, that's for sure. And neither did you, because if you leave this house even to visit a shrine, you're made to regret it. As for Mother, her mind does not incline that way. And if she'd done a thing like that, we'd have seen her. So Orestes is the one who left these burial gifts.
You don't have a clue. As you talked, I pitied you. He's dead. I'm sorry, all hope of him is gone.
Don't say that. Who told you this?
A man who was beside him when he died.
No, don't say this. Then who could it possibly be who made all those offerings at Father's tomb?
My best guess is therefore Orestes, now that he's dead, put there as a memorial by someone or other.
This is terrible. I came in such a hurry to bring you this joyful news, but I did not really know how deeply we were ruined.
That's how things are with you. But listen to me. You can shake off the weight of all this grief.
What am I going to do? Raise the dead? So what are you asking me to do that I can do?
Pay attention now, here's my plan. You know as well as I, we've no friends here to help. There's no one left for us. So as long as I was told our brother lived and flourished, I had hoped that someday soon he'd take on the job and avenge our father's death. But now that he's no more, it's you I'm looking at. This red-handed murderer who killed father. You won't hesitate, will you? Kill Aegisthus. When a girl inherits from her father nothing but grief, none of his wealth, then what is her legacy aside from time to grow old? Would Aegisthus ever allow you or me to carry on our family and breed a new generation of threats to him? It's obvious. No one could be so stupid. But if you adopt my plan, here's what will happen. First, you'll earn sacred goodwill from both of those who are dead and buried, our father and our brother. On top of that, you'll call yourself what you were born to be, a free woman. And anyone who sees you then, citizen or foreigner, won't he heap you with praise? Wouldn't he say, "Look, my friends, this is the pair of sisters who saved their father's house. Everyone should love and treat them with respect. In festivals or assemblies of the city, everyone should honor them for manly courage. So trust me, sister dear, do as I say. Take up the burden of our father's pain. Take up our brother's trouble and release me from evil. Release yourself."
What could you possibly expect from this? You lift your fierceness like a sword and you ask me for support? Can't you see? You're a woman. That's your nature. You're not a man. You're not as strong as your enemies in a fight. Good luck is blooming for them, growing by the day. For us, it's draining away. It goes to nothing. Our troubles are bad enough, so you'd best take care. They'd be worse if someone had heard what you just said. It won't save us, and it won't do us any good to become famous on our way to a disgraceful death.
Just as I expected. And you perfectly well, you tossed my proposal away. So, I'm single-handed. I'll have to do this thing alone. I'll never let it go.
Oh, how I wish you'd had a plan like that when Father died. You could have overcome everything.
I was as strong by nature then, but not so strong-minded.
You should train your mind to always be the same.
So you won't help me take action. You want me to mind you.
Because if you start this way, I expect you'll end badly.
I do admire your mind. It's your cowardice I hate. Get out of here. You're no use at all. You'll run to your mother and tell her everything.
I don't hate you that much, really. I don't.
But don't you see that you're leading me into disgrace?
Disgrace? No. Thinking ahead, yes, for your own sake.
I should live by these laws. They're not for me.
Do what you want. You'll respect me afterward.
Of course I'll do what I want. You don't scare me.
Then I'll leave. My words will never earn your respect, and the way you're going, your actions will never earn mine.
Okay, go inside then. I'll never follow you.
So the chorus enters in, and then they sing about the wisdom of birds, the suffering of Elektra, and the things, and the need to make things right. And then finally, we're ready to see Orestes come home. In the next scene, we have Orestes, Elektra, and the chorus.
Greetings. Did we hear right? Are we on the right road for where we need to be?
What are you looking for? What brought you here?
Aegisthus. I've been asking where he lives. Is there one of you who could tell the family about our group's arrival? It has been eagerly awaiting.
She could, if you want to ask the closest relative.
Miss, could you go inside and tell them that some men from Phocis are asking for Aegisthus?
Oh no. Don't tell me that what you're carrying is proof. Visible proof of the story we have heard.
I don't know what rumor you heard, but an old man named Strophius sent us with news about Orestes.
What is it? How quickly fear comes over me.
Here is the little that remains of him. He's dead. As you can see, the urn we bring is very small. This is the container for his body.
Visitor, give it to me, please, right now. Is he really hidden in this urn? Let me hold it in my own hands.
Here, take this, whoever you are.
So this is all I have to remember him. No one was closer to me than Orestes. I sent him off with such high hopes, and now I'm taking him back with none. This thing I hold in my hands is nothing but you, my child, were a blaze of light when I sent you from home. I should have died before these hands stole you and sent you abroad. I saved you from murder, but I stole from you the opportunity to die at home on the same day as father and to be buried with him in his tomb. But as it was, you were on foreign ground, a refugee. What a horrible way to die. Cut off from your sister. So I could not take your body in my own dear hands and grieve and bathe and lay you out. It was foreign hands who put your little remnant in a little urn. Now I weep for the times gone by when I would care for you. What a waste that was. All the sweet trouble I took for you. You never belonged to mother as much as to me. I loved you more than she did. No servants looked after you but me. You always called me sister. Now all of this has been lost in one day. The day you died. Laughter from our enemies, a wild rage of joy from our mother. Unmother, I mean, the one you said by secret messages that you would come and punish on your own. But now our demon luck, yours and mine, has ripped this away from us. Frightful, horrible, the paths you had to take. You destroyed me. Really destroyed me, my dear brother. So take me now under this roof of yours. Take this nothing into nothing so that I may be at home below with you forever after.
You come from a father who was subject to death, Elektra. Keep that in mind. Orestes too is mortal, so do not mourn too much. We all must die.
Oh no. What can I say? Words fail me. I do not have the strength to control my tongue.
You're in pain suddenly. Why? What is this about?
You look like someone famous. Are you Elektra?
I am, and I am in total agony.
How sadly things turned out for you.
It's not possible. You're a visitor. Why weep for me?
They've made a wreck of your body. What contempt, what godlessness, what misery. Not married, not enough food.
Why are you looking at me this way, weeping?
I had no idea how rotten my situation was.
How could you learn this from what you've heard?
Because I see you. Your suffering is so conspicuous.
Yes, because I live and feed with the murderers.
Of whom? Where'd this trouble come from? Be clear.
My father. I am the slave of the people who murdered him.
Someone's compelling you to live like this. Who is it?
She's called my mother, but she's nothing like a mother.
What does she do? Lay hands on you? Starve you?
Lay hands and starve and everything.
Isn't there anyone to help or protect you?
No, there was, but you gave me his ashes.
It's so hard. The moment I saw you, I pitied you. Are these people on your side?
Yes, they are. You can talk safely.
Then set this urn aside if you want to learn everything.
For God's sake, stranger, don't do this to me.
Put the container down and I'll tell you everything.
No, it's what I love most.
You can't keep it.
This is horrible. Orestes, if I am not allowed to bury you.
Careful what you say. It's wrong for you to weep.
How could it be wrong? It's my brother who died.
It's not for you to say this.
Have I lost the right to mourn for him? How?
It's not Orestes. That was just a story we made up.
Then where is the poor man's casket?
There isn't one. A living man doesn't have a casket.
What did you say, my child?
Nothing false.
Is the man alive?
If I am breathing.
Is it you?
Look at this seal. It was my father's. Then you'll know.
Oh, my dearest light.
Dearest. Dearest, I swear.
Your voice, it's here.
No need to hear from others now.
I have you in my arms.
And forever after.
Dearest women, women of the city, look, here's Orestes.
We see him, dear child. Such good luck. Joy brings tears to our eyes.
Oh, beloved seed, beloved child. You're here now. You're found. You came. You saw those you longed for.
Yes, we're here, but keep it quiet.
Why?
Quiet is better. Better so no one inside hears.
No, by Artemis, goddess undominated, always married, I will never consent to tremble at the women who stay indoors.
Well, look, there's war in Winning too. You learned that from your experience.
Pain, pain, pain. This evil thing you've brought up, not covered by clouds, never to be dispersed, never to be forgotten. This evil which we have by birth.
I know this very well, but wait till their arrival prompts us. Then we should remember what they did.
Every time is the right time for me. Every moment. It is always proper to speak out on this. It's till now, I barely had the freedom to open my mouth.
I entirely agree with you. So protect your freedom.
How?
Stop trying to talk so much when it's not the right time.
But you're here. Brilliantly. I couldn't think, I couldn't hope to see you, and now I do!
Something you do, shh! Now that the gods have goaded me into it.
Oh, joy beyond joy. If a god brought you to our house.
So that phenomenal scene took us through an emotional roller coaster. The likes of which, well, we've come to expect from this play and from Greek tragedy in general. In the next scene, we come to one of the final moments of the play, when we get to see Elektra, Orestes, and Aegisthus bring the play around to the end.
Look, he is on the move, Ares, blasting gales of foul strife and blood. Already the hounds have tracked their evil prey. Beneath the roof they are inescapable. So now my heart's dream will come true here on earth. Now the defender of the dead is being led on the silent feet of deception right to the center of his father's former wealth, and the blood is ready for his hands. Hermes, son of Maia, guides him in darkness, concealing the trick now, waiting for this moment, but he waits no longer.
My dear women, the men are at the very point of doing this thing, so keep it quiet.
What are they doing now?
She has the burial urn. She's dressing it for burial.
But why did you rush back out?
I'm standing guard, so we know if Aegisthus starts to come inside.
This house is full of killers. There's no one on my side.
Someone is shouting inside. Do you hear it?
Yes, I heard it. I wish I hadn't. Horrible. It made my flesh creep.
I'm finished. Aegisthus, where are you now?
Listen, what a horrible scream.
My child, oh, my child, I gave you birth. Have pity on me.
But you had none. There was no pity for you, for the father who planted the seed. Hit her again. Make it twice if you're strong enough. How I wish Aegisthus had the same.
Curses fulfilled. Drop by drop, the thirsty dead alive beneath the ground suck back the blood of those who killed them long ago. And here they are. His hands drips red from a sacrifice to Ares. I do not know what to say.
Orestes, how did it go? Is she dead? Miserable woman.
You'll never be afraid again. Mother's pride will not humiliate you any longer.
Be quiet. I see Aegisthus. He's very close.
Boys, you'd better go back.
Where do you see him?
He's coming from the outskirts of the town, full of joy. Hurry up now. Follow your...
I'm gone.
I'll see to things out here.
Speak gently in his ear and don't say very much.
Where are the visitors from Faustus? Which of you knows? I heard they brought us news that Orestes had lost his life in a chariot wreck. You. Yes, I choose you. Where's that rough tongue you used to have?
Of course I know. How could I forget this catastrophe, this loss of my nearest and dearest?
So, where might our guests actually be? Tell me.
Inside. They got to their hostess with ties of friendship.
Is it really true they brought news of a death?
No, not news. Not mere words. They proved it.
So we can be sure, on the basis of visual evidence.
Of course you can. But it is not a happy sight to see.
For once, after all these years, you've said something that gives me joy.
Have your joy then, if you enjoy these things.
Open the palace doors, I command it, and show what's there to all the people of Mycenae and Argos, so that if any of them have been hanging on empty hopes for this man, now they'll see him dead.
My part of that is finished. After so much time, I've got it. My mind is sound. I've learned to serve those who are stronger.
Zeus, what an apparition. This fall of the dice is due to some grudge of the gods. Nemesis, perhaps? But I won't say that. Uncover its face.
Use your own hands. It isn't my duty, it's yours to look at this and speak to it like a close relative.
That's good advice, and I'll follow it. Now is Clytemnestra at home?
She's very close to you. Don't expect her anywhere but here.
What the hell is this?
Are you afraid of someone? Someone you don't recognize?
Who are these men? What is this trap I've fallen into?
Didn't you notice a while ago that although you're alive, you've been matching words with the dead?
Has to be. It can only be Orestes who is talking to me.
What a superb prophet you are. You missed it for ages.
But let me say something.
Don't let him speak another word. For God's sake, brother, he just draw things out.
Go inside, hurry up. Words are not the issue any longer.
Why are you taking me inside? If this is right, this thing you're doing, why do it in the dark? Aren't you ready to kill?
Don't give me orders. Go where you killed my father so you can die in the same place.
Is it really necessary that this very house should see the evils that come to Pelops' heir now and in the future?
It will see yours. On that point, I am the top prophet.
You claim a skill your father did not have.
You're talking back too much. You lengthen the road. Get moving.
Lead on.
You go first.
So I won't escape.
No. So you won't find a pleasant way to die. I must make sure it hurts. Bitterly. This is justice for all. Kill them on the spot. All of them who choose to violate the law.
So it's hard for me to focus after watching that performance because there are so many things about it that were so riveting and powerful. But I'm left at the end with the sense that this play is very different from other plays by Sophocles. At least those that we have. It ends in almost a triumphant moment. I don't know if Amy's ready to sort of log back in and talk a little bit about the plays. But Amy, what I kept thinking of in this one are the other versions of Orestes where he hesitates and there's doubt in whether he's going to do it. In this one, I mean, the killing of Clytemnestra is really not a thing. And then at the end, we have this weird marching off of Aegisthus to death, and we don't have the Furies showing up. We just have this sort of moment of victory. What do you make of that?
I think it's complicated, maybe some in ways that we didn't get to see today. So the tutor here urges Orestes to take action. He's sort of being guided. And actually, when we see that a lot in the libation bearers too, the libation bearers in the chorus urge the siblings to take the action. So he's being prompted quite a bit in this play. And the other thing, we didn't get to hear Clytemnestra we hear her death cries. So we heard the wonderful performance with Evvy as Elektra, letting us say, what is that cry? Who's crying out? And so we get to experience that a little bit. And then when I actually think, partly because of some of the other things I've been talking about, that it's pretty ambiguous at the end. It's not particularly triumphant. First of all, Aegisthus isn't dead yet, right? The Orestes is driving him into the house to kill him, but he's not dead yet. And if you play with the doubling, which I can't stop myself from talking about, sorry. If you play with the doubling, it's likely that this actor is the same actor as Chrysothemis. So he's about to destroy the rest of the family. So there's an ambiguity about it that I think isn't, the Furies don't come after him, which feels pretty Sophoclean. I feel like Sophocles does a lot less supernatural stuff than Aeschylus does, but I'm not sure he gives us a triumphant end.
Okay. And I mean, so some of it may be my memory. So I asked Emma, who does the scene selection, to jump in with us. Emma, when you were selecting these scenes, what were you thinking? What kind of a play were you thinking about putting on? What influenced your decisions?
Because this is kind of one of our first major dips into the House of Atreus, the thinking was to really narrow in on these like familial relationships. And I love the tutor. I love the horse racing speech. I know a lot of people don't, but I genuinely enjoy it for the kind of detailed storytelling and the like, how people kind of go over the top in a lie when they're trying to add in as many details as they possibly can to make it believable, and in the process kind of watering it down. But there is, what I was intending to do in terms of the cuts was really narrow in on the familial dynamics. And that was something that I think we really saw really powerfully today.
Yeah,
with Tabatha and with Eunice and with Evvy, and just these, especially the female relationships in this play. Elektra, for me, has always the play of like the 20 minutes after you get a terrible phone call. Like what happens in the mind and what happens in the psyche after you get some truly awful news. There's a professor of mine when I was in undergrad, Sarah Neuter, who has a book called When Heroes Sing, that talks about Elektra's use of poetic, specifically Elektra's use of poetic language in one chapter. And she talks about like when all you have is your voice, what do you do? And Elektra is put in this position where all she has is her voice. And I really wanted to highlight the ways that Elektra personally uses her voice on the different members of her family.
I think the way that the choices that you made really highlighted that, and Evvy's performance too, because you could really see that when she gets the urn, really well done, guys, too. When she gets the urn, she's like, oh, wait a second, this is really real. She's had the news, she's had the grief, but it hits her more powerfully in a more real way when in that scene. And I think the choices you made really brought that out.
Right, and thank you for those choices, because you gave the actors sort of that sustained space that we've been toying with. And some of the scenes just build remarkably. So before we bring some of the actors in, Amy, you've had lots of experience in sort of in the performance of ancient plays, sort of masks and everything. How has seeing it performed in this context altered your view of the plays and sort of what you'd like to try out in the future?
Well, for me, what I like seeing is when the things that I saw and the way that we do it actually comes out in other conventions as well. So here we are in modern conventions and Zoom conventions, and those family relationships that we saw came out. But I'm kind of used to having that filter of how do the original conventions color or give insight into the play entirely. So I'm really curious, because I'm so stuck in that, as you guys can hear, what it's like. Is knowing about original practices, original conventions, is it useful to actors as they're exploring plays? I know René has had a lot of experience with this, but I'm curious in general, is this just, oh, that's a professor being a professor, this is old news, or is it a helpful thing as you approach a play and a role?
So René, do you want to start the response since you were called out by Amy?
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, as Amy mentioned, so there's a theater in Virginia called the American Shakespeare Center that her dad is a co-founder of. And I worked there for almost 14 years, and they base their work on original practices for Shakespeare's staging conditions. And so I found a lot of use in going back to, not as a way of sort of recreating a museum piece, but finding how the practices that they were using at the time, what we might learn from the plays then, and applying it to a modern context, and the freedom that the original practices. I found a lot of freedom of it as an actor, because when you have a rule set to follow, then you can just sort of leave that as the established baseline, and then you're free to play on top of that.
Cool.
Thank you. And so again, a lot of what makes this particular performance powerful is that translation. We're lucky enough to have Paul Woodruff again joining us in comments. He doesn't want to come on screen, but he said it took him almost 5 years working on this play off and on because of its emotional intensity, not because of the difficulty of the Greek. And one of the things I love about this translation is he takes some departures from the Greek to really make it stick in English. The dynamic between the characters that Emma talks about is part of what makes this play punch. So I kind of want to pair the characters again. So first, Evvy and Tabatha as the sisters. Let me ask an odd question, and then we talk about the performance. Who do you think is the older sister?
Yes, I'll go. Actually, I want to ask Evvy, but I think that Chrysothemis is the younger sister. Definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely think it could be either way. I don't know.
So Tabatha, what makes you sure that you're speaking the voice of a younger sister there?
I just think, actually, you know what? I'm thinking about what I was going to say, which is, oh, she just wants to go with the status quo and not disrupt anything. But then that's the trait of an older sister. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a unconventional youngest sibling.
Maybe. But I agree, like my daughter, who's the older sister, is always like, we have to follow the rules. When she was in kindergarten and got to write, if I were principal, what would I do? Like other kids are like, we'd cancel school, no homework. And she wrote, I'd make sure nobody ran in the hallway.
Wow.
My daughter is the police. But so Evvy, what makes you unsure about the age of the sisters, and how did you conceive of their relationships? I guess for both of you, what kind of relationship do these sisters have?
I think it's a really interesting. We've spoken about this a lot, haven't we? About the fact that as soon as you're playing a character, it's really hard to see things in them that you're not like, well, of course that's justifiable. She's perfect. But I imagine Elektra is incredibly difficult to live with and to live around. And I feel, having Elektra as a sister, when, the kind of the wrong that has been done to so many other members of the family, to Iphigenia, to Clytemnestra, it feels such an ambiguous situation, really, for me, to see who's in the wrong. So I was interested.
Go ahead.
When I read it, I feel like her language is so emotive all the way through. I wonder if that's the same in the Greek, except for that period where she's describing Iphigenia's sacrifice and the kind of story with Artemis. It feels like it gets so just cold and clinical suddenly that it feels very different to speak that little section of English. I
mean, I think that Paul did a good job of conveying that sense of the Greek there, which is, you're right. And that's why I get the sense that Elektra is reciting a history she's heard from the past. Right, rather than feeling something. Amy?
I think, yes, very much that thing that you just said, especially in that speech. She said that a lot. But one of the things that that you can see in the Greek that we didn't get to play with this time is that a lot of the times Elektra is singing. And so that emotion, you correctly, and Paul brought it out in the translations, you correctly saw that her own stuff is heightened. It's song lyrics. She's singing about how miserable she is and won't the gods see me, and those things. So even that moment that you guys did so beautifully with the shh, be quiet, Elektra is singing, Orestes is not singing. Like you can tell from the meter, he's in prose chasing her around saying, shush, shut up. And she's singing for joy. So you guys managed to bring that out even without getting to play with it as song, but her language is definitely different in the Greek.
For whatever reason, your description of that, Amy, made me think of that episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Once More with Feeling, right?
Yep.
That's the one non-singing character. So to stay on the sisters just one more time, did you two talk about your dynamic as sisters before the performance? Because definitely one seems serious, one had a little more sass. It might be more fun to hang out with. I'm talking about Chrysothemis. Right? Did you talk about this, or is this something that you just brought out of the language?
I think there was, during the rehearsal that we got to have, there was just conversation about the dynamic. We actually did speak about Chrysothemis being younger, and I guess what it would feel like, the tonal differences between the first scene, where she's like, ah, gosh, Elektra, stop, shut up, you're wailing again in our doorway. And that second scene where she realizes or believes that Orestes is alive, she doesn't go to anybody else. She goes straight to Elektra, which is interesting. That's in my head reasoning that's younger sister behavior. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of this thing. I'm so excited about this one thing. I'm going to bring it to you rather than to our mother, to Aegisthus.
Right. It's also a really nice indicator that the relationship isn't just antagonism, right? And it's a really sort of powerful transition. So sticking with the family, Eunice, your Clytemnestra. This Clytemnestra, I think, may be the most sympathetic of the Clytemnestrae who appear in Greek tragedy. What was your reading of her as a character and her speeches when you came to the role?
I mean, I'm not advocating murder, but I totally understand where she's coming from, you know? A daughter has been murdered. And if you read that in the paper today, you know, father murders daughter, you wouldn't be thinking, good on him, you know, and you'd be thinking, what a dreadful man. And so, okay, she then takes a lover, but so I just totally understand where she's coming from. And she's just so fed up with Elektra, you know, fed up to the back teeth with Elektra. Just shut up and get on with it. You know, for goodness sake, what I've done is right. Stop bringing up fairy tales to me, you know?
I mean, there's that sense, I mean, I think you had it well, that Elektra doesn't know what she's talking about. Right? Yeah. She didn't have your experience. And so, Evvy, when you were thinking about your relationship with Clytemnestra, are you just being the rebellious teenager, you know, in love with the father you never actually lived with, who killed your sister? I mean, how can one rationalize this?
There was so much of that. I think so much of it felt like kind of a huge kind of extension of the normal teenage kickback, where you hate one of your parents and you think the other one is absolutely right, and you don't understand. Like, it feels like the awful Greek tragedy version of that. And also, I suppose those kind of family myths and stories that get passed down to you when you're a child and you can't remember them for yourself, but you maybe have a photograph, or this aunt told you this, and you fix onto it because it's part of the kind of, it's your history myth, isn't it? And I think that's important to people, and that is not, it's not easy to shake that. It's not easy to kind of to really ask yourself the questions about whether you're in the right. That definitely, yeah.
Amy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole concept of the Elektra complex, which is sort of like that version of the other side of the Oedipal complex, comes from this myth. Do you think we need that type of psychoanalytical background to motivate Elektra's animus here?
No, I really don't. I think that's modern psychiatry looking for models in myth. That's how powerful these stories are, that they give us models, that they're all these stories that give us a wealth of models to talk about the things that are bothering us, right? So, but there isn't anything that I can see in the Elektra story. So I think Evvy's exactly right about that thing that you fix onto and she cannot let go of. But she's not, there's nothing sexual that I have ever been able to see in any of the versions of Elektra about her upset over the death of her father. Yeah. So it's not even a good parallel with Oedipus and his story. And if it brings people to the story and makes them think about it, of course that's wonderful. But I think that whole thing is more an indication of how rich this whole mythological world is, for us still to be talking about, still to be helping us talk about the things that are bothering us.
And if anything, it's the absence of Agamemnon that makes him an attractive father, rather than any memory of his presence and living. Right. And I can't imagine it was a nice household to be with a grieving mother all those years with the father at war. So sticking with Evvy, I'm sorry I'm making you do extra work today, and Tim. So you guys played double the single screen game with us again today. And I think that that arc from Evvy's lament into her joy is one of the most memorable scenes we've seen so far. You're doing it again. That's good, right? So, I mean, your closeness both as performers and in physical space really made that scene work. Was this an occasion where you practiced it at home to sort of get that working?
Well, we've been in lockdown it's we've been in close quarters for quite a while. So
we've done all the plays, all the Shakespeare's, all the Greek. We've done every scene.
There's a hard drive somewhere with Shakespeare's complete works. It's you guys.
Yeah. No, it's always a funny one. You want to focus as an actor on the emotional content and having to then be like, mute, you need to mute, no, turn your sound off.
Yeah, unlike Kamala Harris, we're not good at Zoom. Yeah, Joe Biden thought about us as a VP pick, but we're not up there.
Next time.
So I mean, building up to that emotional moment, right? It makes the play work. So Orestes, or Tim, as Orestes, Orestes is usually the center of the play. Here, I feel that you are really an accessory to Elektra's emotion. Were you centered as Orestes coming home to kill his mom, or were you thinking more of Orestes as Elektra's brother coming home?
Yeah, I think Orestes thinks he's walking into his play. I think it's his. I think he's very much kind of, he's quite a young, immature man in many ways, I think, and I think he's got this kind of single-minded mission, and he thinks it's going to be a lot more straightforward. Perhaps it's going to be maybe easier to kind of achieve. And then he's confronted by Elektra, by his sister, and the emotion. I think the emotion, it's an amazing part, and I'd love to explore it more. But I really feel like the emotion hits him unexpectedly in this scene, and he's not. Yeah, he's just not. He's not prepared for that.
And that's and the play itself. And I wonder, Amy, if you might want to comment on this. I mean, he says this is not Orestes, right? That's just a story we made up, right? Yeah. Am I reading too much to see this as sort of meta-theatrical, and to listen to Tim's comments about thinking, well, this is not his play? Are we supposed to feel sort of discomforted by this?
I hadn't thought about it in terms of this is not his play. So let me let that percolate a little bit, but certainly meta-theatrically, that Sophocles is having an enormous amount of fun with it, partly because it's Orestes in that moment. He's struggling to decide, should I give myself away? So, and in that time we're also watching, Elektra's grief and knowing that she's grieving for nothing. So we have this enormous irony, and Sophocles highlights that by focusing everything on this object and letting the person of Orestes say, this is not a person, brings that home even more. I love the idea, Tim, that he thinks he's coming into his play, but it turns out actually it's his sister's play. Elektra has been dominating this space for a really long time. I now want to spend more time thinking about that scene and whether he is sort of secondary in that scene in a way that he didn't expect to be.
And from my perspective in looking at myth and the use of myth in tragedy and Homer, it's something that happens a lot. Epic heroes don't know which story they're in, right? The paradigms don't match their behavior. And so Tim, one of the things I love about this whole process, and I haven't mentioned yet, this is our 20th episode, right? And one of the things I found most fascinating and powerful about it is learning from the actors, right? Comments like that make me think, oh, I know nothing, right? And it's really valuable. So as we're turning to close, I want to talk to René. You came in as Aegisthus, and who are you as Aegisthus? Are you like aging sports star who bumbles into a scene where he thinks he's winning? Because you, as I feared or hoped, you tread that line between the comic ebullience and sort of this tragic end. So who do you think Aegisthus is?
Well, that was really what Paul was hoping for. I mean, it's a tricky little part, right? Because the whole like crisis and climax of the play is resting on your shoulders, and you've got about 6 lines to carry it in. And so it's a weird kind of position to find yourself in. And so we just wanted to go with the, Elektra says, here he comes in joy. So this idea of this consummate statesman who has the ease of power about him. And then the horror of what sort of gets presented to him.
It's a fascinating thing about that character in myth, right? Because you start with him in the Odyssey, and Aegisthus did it all, right? He's the bad guy, and Clytemnestra is an unwilling, unloyal dupe, right? And then you get to Agamemnon by Aeschylus, and like, there's no Aegisthus, right? He's just not really there. He's not as important as Clytemnestra. And here, Clytemnestra is believable and empathetic, and Aegisthus is kind of just a buffoon, right? You're kind of like, yeah, let's all kill Aegisthus. Here we go. But that's where I don't know where the tone is, and maybe if we knew more about the context of the play, right? What year it was, right? What was going on in the world? Like, are we cheering for the exile of someone? Are we cheering for the death of a general? Or is this just like a different way of thinking about the play? And part of that tonality throughout the play comes from the chorus. Sara, I'm sorry to leave you for last, but this chorus, some of the choruses, you know what's going on. And I feel that this is one of those choruses that's really on the edge, right? I mean, it's really sort of keeping the play buoyed from time to time. And so you don't get a real sense of the identity of the chorus that you do in some other plays. What was your approach to it?
My thinking in reading it, I really think at the heart they are also rooting for Elektra, but are also wanting to temper how she would go about something. But and I feel like in the choruses, the few that I've read, I actually felt like this was the one that waffled the least. That in the extremes of their emotions, they still were behind Elektra. And to single out Aegisthus and say, can I say it? I want him dead, seems like a really strong point of view for a chorus. So I felt like this chorus had strong points of view and supporting Elektra for the most part, which was fun to play. It was fun to play at the end where the chorus got really excited and Elektra had to say, calm down, it's happening, they're coming, calm down. So that was fun.
Yeah, I guess to go back to what we were saying before, Amy, that sense, the chorus really contributes to that sense of triumph and anticipation at the end that you don't necessarily get in some of the other versions, right?
That's
I
true.
feel that this, if we're imagining this as the middle part of a trilogy again, I don't even know if that's the case. There's more of a new hope to this end than there is Empire Strikes Back, right? I mean, it doesn't feel like it's in the middle of things.
Yeah, I don't think we know what the other plays were that day.
Okay.
So which leaves it entirely open. But yes, there's like new generation, new energy going on here.
Yeah. So if we don't know what the plays were, we can just make it up.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah. Paul, before we close, do you want to add some comments? The whole play is being performed. Paul O'Mahony, what do you got for us?
Well, first of all, I just want to say a big thank you to all of our amazing cast again, and to Amy as well. I just, I thought I wanted to mention that this is the 20th of our series so far, and this is the exact halfway point then that we're now reaching. And to mark that, we're going to be then performing the whole play of Sophocles Electra on the 22nd of August. So that's Saturday the 22nd at 3 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on the same usual places that the series is on as well. So you can join us and see the whole thing. So this is like an extended trailer for that. And next week as well, we'll be making an announcement about a competition in connection with the series. So watch out for that. I think that's probably as much as Pylades should ever say. So I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe then you can just recede in the background and make interesting faces. Do you have any more blood to smear on your face there? So next week we will have an announcement that has to do with Euripides' Medea, but we will be performing Euripides' Iphigenia at Tauris at 3 p.m., which is another strange play, but it's going to be a delight to perform. So I'll see everybody back next week. Before we leave, I want to thank everybody for participating again, our guest Amy, the actors, and everybody who makes this possible. Emma, Paulie for helping with the dramaturgy, Lana for setting everything up, John Coley for his amazing posters, Keith, Ellen, Janet, Sarah, and Ali for helping out with poster design. Thank you all. I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you stay safe and take care.